Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me, as always, it's Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor. And Chuck, you published, like 10,000 words this morning? You got
not quite that much, but a lot.
That's a couple of articles up on allphly.com right now. One about the Cam York contract, which we covered yesterday. The other about development camp, and that'll be a large portion of today's show.
Yes.
We talked about Alex Bump and this year's draft class yesterday. But today we're going to talk about more under-the-radar guys from past drafts, maybe a little closer to the NHL than we think. But first, I got to tell you to hit that freaking like button. Do it. Nice solid 35 likes as of right now, but
it's a solid
we gotta
start,
get that number
but we need much more.
We got to get that number
Far
up.
more likes.
Yeah, and if you want to read Charlie's articles and you're not a diehard, you got to go become one, because just the content he's put out over the past few months, it's well worth the money alone. And then you look at every other sport and it's like, well, that's just bonus at this point.
I don't usually brag in this way about the articles I write, but I am proud of the fact that, and this is not a shot at any of the other writers that cover the Flyers, no one covers development camp with the detail that I do.
Charlie,
no one does. And again, that's not a shot at anybody else, but no one is doing the kind of article that I do to wrap up development camp, where I'm breaking down the skill sets of everyone. Like, you're not going to get this kind of content anywhere else.
No, it's one of Charlie's things. This is one of the things he's best at. I love your in-game analysis, your ability to break things down like that. Use all the video that we showed some yesterday, and there'll be even more video in the article. So check it out, allphly.com. If you're not a diehard, you're missing out. All right. Yeah, hit the like button. Do it. And I just love, yeah, man, we talked about Van Sage, and we talked about Jack Murtagh, and of course Nesbitt and Martone yesterday, and everyone wants to know about those guys.
Of course.
The first name on the list today, Charlie, Noah Powell. This is the kind of analysis you don't get anywhere. You don't hear about Noah Powell ever, and we're gonna lead off the under the radar, perhaps, portion of development camp with Noah Powell. And I think you, especially after a kind of weird, kind of bad draft plus one season where he's at Ohio State, it doesn't go great, he ends up back in the OHL. You were pretty impressed.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect from Noah Powell at this camp, but I did remember that he was impressive at last year's camp. That I came away from last year's development camp thinking, oh wow, Flyers might have gotten a steal in the 5th round. Now, granted, he did get passed over in his first draft eligible.
He was a
year.
redraft guy.
So last year, he was a year old for the draft class when the Flyers took him in 2024. So now, even though this past season was technically his draft plus one, functionally, age-wise, it was his draft plus two, which is a reason to, keep your expectations reasonable. He's not the same age, let's say, as Spencer Gill. He's a year older. Really, he's like a year and a half older, because Spencer Gill is young for his draft year.
He's 6 months away from turning 21.
Right.
This is a more aged player.
Yes, exactly. So that's worth keeping in mind. And he didn't have a great year this past year. As you mentioned, he enrolled at Ohio State coming out of the USHL. Didn't do much. 5 points in 17 games. Wasn't getting a ton of playing time. Wasn't being used the way he wanted to. So he went over to Oshawa, which was a stacked team. Did well, 22 points in 28 games, but not amazing. Wasn't point per game. 14 points in 21 playoff games. So you're like, maybe there's just nothing there. He's going to Arizona State this next season. He's going back to college. But I'll keep an eye on him. He's an interesting guy. And he was really good at this camp. Really, really good. We interviewed him. He's a really good kid. If you don't remember the Noah Powell story, he is basically functionally deaf. Now, he's not completely deaf. He can hear a little bit, but he mostly uses lip reading to be able to follow what coaches are telling him, what media people are asking him in these interviews. You really wouldn't be able to tell, other than the fact that like when he looks at you, you can tell he's really looking at you. He's not just casually looking off in the background and thinking about what he's going to do on the golf course in a couple hours. Like, he is staring at you. But beyond that, you really wouldn't know. So he's got that cool aspect of his story. But just that by itself would be like, all right, cool. Can he play? At these development camps, he can play. He talked to us and he basically was like, I want to be a power forward. That's my thing. Well, oh boy, he's a power forward. So I don't know if we have the videos here. Do we have the videos? Brenna's got the videos. So two of the best players we talked about yesterday at this camp, Alex Bump, Jack Nesbitt. Maybe you could call Noah Powell Nesbitt and Bump's Bane because he blew up both of them.
I did. This is the hit.
Here's the hit on Nesbitt. So he's going to get the puck right at the top of the slot. He's just dangling. And then, Noah Powell's like, yeah, you're sitting down. And Nesbitt, again, we're talking about a 6'5" guy.
He's a huge guy.
He's a huge guy. And Noah Powell's just like, yeah, no problem. I'm knocking you down. This was in drills. Then on Saturday, near the end of the 3-on-3 tournament,
such a clean hit.
Alex Bump got to meet Mr. Noah Powell. There we go. That was even better. And Bump got up slow from this one. And I remember vividly being like, oh God, did he just hurt Alex Bump? Then Bump went after him as they were coming back down the ice. That's not in this video, but Bump was like, kind of, what the hell, man? What the hell? This is Noah Powell just being Noah Powell.
And this speaks, I think, a lot to the part of our conversation about Bump yesterday is he likes to carry the puck into the slot. He likes to take the puck into the interior, play between the dots, not even just play a give and go game and then try to get a shot off. He's trying to take the puck himself into those areas. And this is the danger of playing that way against grown men. And like we said, Noah Powell, almost, he's 20 and a half years old. Caught him. He caught him good. But that is also, hey, I think the Flyers need a little bit more of that element. If this is Noah Powell, who Noah Powell wants to be, he needs to show that he can do it.
Yeah, and if it was just the hitting, it wouldn't have been that memorable. These hits are memorable. They're great videos to have because people are going to be like, oh, man, this is awesome.
That'll get retweeted,
Yeah, they're good for engagement. But it wasn't like Noah Powell was just hitting.
Mm-hmm.
He was good. He had, in my mind, if I was ranking quality of shots at this camp, I'd probably put his shot third. I would say best shot at camp was Alex Bump, second best Jack Murtagh, third best Noah Powell. He had a bomb. He can fire it. He could roof it. He was finishing on a lot of his shots. Now again, he's older. He's 20 years old. So don't get crazy that I'm not mentioning Porter Martone. He's 18 years old. Noah Powell's 2 years older. He's bigger. He's not taller, but he's probably stronger, I would say. I think he's more built at this stage of his career. He can fire it. Noah Powell, I would say, one of maybe the 3 or 4 most impressive players in the 3-on-3 tournament on Saturday. Wasn't quite as impressive in the scrimmage, though I did really like one play, and I don't think I included the video in the article, but I have the video. So the way they do penalties in these tournaments is it's basically like soccer style. The guy who is going to take the penalty shot, whoever the penalty occurred to, gets the puck at center ice, and then everybody else lines up at the back blue line behind them. And then that guy can skate it on a breakaway, but the other guys can chase him. Now, generally speaking, everybody at that back blue line just kind of lags back, lets him do his thing. Well, Matthew Gard got an opportunity in the 5-on-5 scrimmage to do one of those breakaways, and he was taking it a little slower than you probably should have. Noah Powell was the guy who was coming. Everybody else is just dogging it a little bit, whatever. Noah Powell was going, and he puts back pressure on Matthew Gard, doesn't really even let him get off a real shot on the breakaway. I'm not saying that's a huge deal. It's a game. It's a scrimmage. But that does show the effort. It shows he's got that dog in him,
And that will stand out to coaches.
Exactly.
really show out when the lights go on and maybe aren't the best practice players. Sounds like Noah Powell in this atmosphere is really good, and that's when the coaches have the most eyes on you at this point in the season.
I think he was a guy where, given the way his season went, he also
had something to prove.
He had to show the Flyers brass that he's not an afterthought, that he's a guy who they should still pay attention to. They should still send development coaches all the way out to Arizona State to go talk with him. They should still be calling him every week to see how he's doing, that he shouldn't fall into the background of this pipeline, which just added a ton of players. I mean, it would be very easy for a 5th round pick from last year, given all of the picks they made this year in the top 2 rounds, to just be like, we have a big development set, but it's not that big. To me, the performance he put on this past week, it guarantees that he will stay relevant in this prospect pool, at least internally.
No, and I think that's important. You take a look at, like you said, what they just added 6 guys just in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
So these are guys with the pedigree. A lot of resources are going to go towards them and their development. Yeah, that's the future of the team right there. This is going to be maybe the most important draft of the Briere era, other than just getting Michkov. Probably that's huge. The Briere, but like, you have to keep yourself relevant. You have to keep yourself part of the conversation. We've seen them move on from a few prospects in the past couple of years, guys. It was, all right, they just never really took that next step. Time to see the next crop. Like, we liked you, Zaid. We liked you, Elliott, but too bad.
There's only so many spots.
Yeah, like, there's only so many spots. Wade Allison, we saw. Who was the defenseman? Ronnie Attard. Eventually, you have to or get off the pot with these guys, and you want to keep yourself in the conversation so you have as much opportunity down the line as you can get. I like a guy who shows out in these settings. Maybe he can bounce back in his draft +2 season.
Yeah, I was always intrigued by the skill set. There were some people around the game that I talked to after the 2024 draft who said, hey, the Flyers might have gotten a player in Noah Powell. Surprised that he slipped all the way to the 5th round, even though he was a redraft. He just had an intriguing skill set. He had a big year with Dubuque in the USHL. So he was a guy who people had some eyes on, who was intriguing. The sheen came off this year for him, I would say, but at this camp, he maybe buffed it up a little bit more.
It is a shame, though, that not to make light of his handicap that he seems to be dealing pretty well with, though, but it is a shame they don't have Torts anymore. So we can't make the joke. He gets to not hear Tortorella yelling at him.
Yeah, that was a good bit.
It was a good
bit.
That bit. It was a good bit. All right, the next guy I want to talk about, someone I'm really excited to talk about, because it just seems as if, on draft day when they took Cole Knuble, we were like, if his dad wasn't Mike, would he be here?
It's a fair point. I'm not going to lie, I thought that.
If his name was Cole Smith, and it would probably be Jason Smith's kid, so yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is hockey, after all. Everyone's someone's kid. But if Cole Knuble wasn't just related to Mike Knuble, would he be a part of this organization? And it was, I thought, a fair question at the time.
He was probably the only guy in that draft class where I was skeptical of the pick, because I'm like, low upside.
What is this guy?
There's the nepotism factor, the Flyers thing. Like, okay, I guess we had to give the old school Flyers something, so they drafted Mike Knuble's kid. Fine, I'll deal with that to get a Denver Barkey and an Alex Ciernik. Now I'm becoming sold on Cole Knuble.
Following, and listen, his sophomore year at Notre Dame, 12 goals, 39 points in 34 games.
Over a point per game
pace.
He was
over a point per game place at the NCAA level, and you had him as maybe your most pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I think with Noah Powell, it was, even though he was a surprise based on how he played this past season, he impressed me at last year's
You'd
camp.
already seen him do this
So I'd
before.
seen him do things, and it was like, okay, let's see if he can do it again and try to rehabilitate his drafts, his prospect stock, and he did. I've never seen, because I've seen 2 camps with Cole Knuble. He got drafted in 2023. He was a 4th round pick. So he was at the 2023 camp. Then he was at last year's camp. This guy looked different than the guy I've seen at past camps. And I think it really, at its core, because everything stems from this, it comes down to the skating. He, like Noah Powell, was passed over in his first draft eligible year. And we're talking about a guy who's Mike Knuble's kid.
Yeah.
Like, that's a surprise when the kid of a player, although I guess Radivojevic's kid, I think, got passed over too, but that's because he's a small defenseman. For Mike Knuble's kid to get passed over, there must be a real problem here. The problem was skating. He was a below average skater and he was under 6 foot. And it was like, all right, you might be Mike Knuble's kid, but you're a below average skater and you're under 6 foot. Like, come on. Maybe if you were 6'3", we'd throw you a 6th-round pick, but you can't skate and you're not big. You got no chance. Well, he worked at it in his, what should have been his draft plus one, but then was his second draft eligible year. Had a good year in the USHL, and the Flyers picked him in the 4th round. I talked to Brent Flair after that pick, and Brent was like, look, he got a lot better skating-wise year over year. Now he's at the point where he's average. We think it's going to progress more. We like the hockey IQ. We like the work ethic. We obviously know him because of Mike. We think there's something there. We think he's got the ability potentially to stick down the middle, even with his size. I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. Probably a 4C at best. This camp, he is not slow. He is not even an average skater. He's fast. Like, not like Murtag level fast, not Jet Luchenko fast.
But he can move.
He's an above average skater, I would say now. And that is a dramatic improvement from where he was 2 years ago when they picked him, but a ridiculous improvement based on the stories I've heard about what his skating was 3 years ago when he was passed over in the draft. And the thing is that now that he can skate, now he's more confident. Now he's making plays. Now you're seeing the hockey IQ. You're seeing the effort and the compete level. You're seeing the passing ability. And you're seeing a guy where, like, yeah, he might be an NHL center.
And that was, I thought, maybe one of the driving forces other than, the familiarity was he's going to stick at center. Now, if he can skate, do you still see it? Yeah, and it's 4C ceiling, or do you maybe see a little bit more?
I hesitate to say that I see a middle sixer. I think Alex Appleyard hinted that maybe he's upping his view of Knuble, that he might see ceiling of a middle sixer. I might see 3C now. But again, 39 points in 34 games at a major college program, pretty darn good. And talking about the scrimmage, the 5-on-5 scrimmage at the end of camp, he centered Alex Bump on the left and Shane Van Sage on the right. That was by far the best line out of any of the lines on either team. And Cole Knuble was not a passenger. Bump was the best player on the line. He was the skill guy. He scored 2 goals, nearly scored a couple more. Knuble was the guy. And I have this in my article. If you want to watch the video, it's in the article. He was setting up Bump all the time. And these were not, like, oh, I got all the time in the world, so I'm just going to find him. These were plays where he was using his agility to create space for himself. He was battling along the boards, fighting through checks. He was working down low below the goal line. He looked really good. And he was one of those guys where in drills, I said to Jim Jackson, because we watched a lot of the drills together, and I was like, I think Cole Knuble's having a low-key good camp. And then in the 3-on-3, like, he looks good in this too. He's carrying the puck. He's making more plays than I've ever seen him make before. And then in the 5-on-5 scrimmage, everybody was like, yo, Cole Knuble, this dude can play. He was probably the bigger surprise to me because I've never seen him look this good. Whereas with Powell, like, I've seen him look good at camp before. I've never seen Cole Knuble look like this legitimate of a prospect before out of development camp. And that to me speaks to the dramatic physical improvements he's made.
2 things excite me about the description you just gave of the strides Cole Knuble has made. One, it's just he looks like he might play in the NHL one day, and that's cool. Getting a guy late in the draft who might play in the NHL one day is a victory. That is a good pick. Well done. 2, and maybe more importantly, it's further proof of the Flyers' theory that we can fix that. It can be fixed. And as players get bigger and stronger, so too do their legs. And when that happens, we can turn them into better skaters. And if you can do it with Cole Knuble, you can do it with guys with much higher upside too. And that was the knock on several of the draft picks this year. Now, you said, like, you watched Porter Martone, and you're like, he's fine.
Yeah, he's perfectly fine skater.
There were other guys that they took, including Jack Nesbitt, that it's, this ain't good.
Needs to get better.
This is going to be a problem. Yeah. The problem is fixable. Like, you can see it right here. Here's the proof. Now that Cole turned 21 on July 1st, he's older, developing, bigger, stronger. He's in the NCAA, so he gets all that weight room time. They play on the weekend, and then you have all week to get stronger. And here he is, a good skater.
Yeah, and
he was bad.
Exactly, and it's worth noting too, which is a legitimately, and obviously every prospect's different. You don't know how they're going to develop, but if you're worried about guys with theoretical less prospect runway developing further, he got passed over entirely in his draft year, and he still made dramatic improvements starting at, age 19 functionally, which was when he got drafted by the Flyers. So that may be, like, for example, a guy like Martin, who's old for his draft class, you're like, well, how much more runway does he have in terms of improving the skating? Well, if he takes the Cole Knuble route, maybe quite a lot.
Yeah, maybe he turns into Jet Luchenko.
Maybe not that far, but we actually do. Brenna does have a video. This is a setup from Knuble to Alex Bump. Good work along the boards from Knuble. So you see, this is in the 3-on-3 portion of the scrimmage. He's battling. He just slips him, and then boom, right there, set up, Bump gets stopped. But like again, this is just this is a translatable play. Yeah. This is not, oh, I've got all the time in the world. This is I'm in a battle. I'm along the boards. I'm in tight quarters, and I fight through that check, create space for myself, had that nice little short area burst with the stride to create more space, and then find Alex Bump for a really quality chance. Like, these are the kind of plays he was making all game in the scrimmage.
No, and that's, you see a bit of everything there. Gets away, like skates through, gets away from the contact, and then creates separation with the couple powerful strides before setting up Alex Bump. Good stuff. Like, that is, it's great to see a guy who, okay, maybe he's got some sort of ceiling, but turned himself into a legitimate prospect for this team. And I'm very much looking forward to, and it's not for a few months. I saw Alex tweeting about it last night, though, your top 20 prospects list. So he might be moving on up, is the impression I am getting.
I'm planning to move him up. I don't know where Alex is going to put him, but I'm planning to move Cole Knuble up dramatically.
All right, before we get to a few more under-the-radar prospects, let's take our first commercial break. 1-800-588-2300 Empire. Empire Today. It is the only place for new flooring. I don't know how many times I got to tell you before. You just understand there is no better place for flooring than Empire Today, and it's for one simple reason. Empire Today is the flooring experts. You don't have to go to the big box store, look for someone to tell you what you don't know, realize they don't know either, and then figure it out all on your own. No, the Empire Today flooring experts, they're with you every step of the way in their new they're with you every step of the way in your new flooring project, including bringing the showroom right to your home. That's right. Not only do they live and breathe flooring, but you don't even have to leave your house to see all of the samples and everything you need so you make the right decision for you. You can check out the right flooring and the right colors for your space, in your space. See how it all looks with your furniture up against your paint colors in your house. And they take the precise measurements for you and have all your questions answered, so there are never any surprises. And with Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. And you can schedule installation as soon as the next day, because nobody likes waiting around. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. And PHLY listeners, listen up, because you can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, $350 off with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details. Charlie, I walked into my garage yesterday, and it was a sauna in there.
Yeah, this Philly heat, especially now, it's no joke.
This humidity is here. So what I ended up doing, I got like 20 bags of ice. I went into my backyard, filled a baby pool with them. Nice little inflatable I have back there. Did a little cold plunge.
Why didn't you just turn on your air conditioner?
I'm trying to be energy efficient. I hear the cold plunges are good for you. You seem like a cold plunge kind of guy. And I'm trying to save a little bit of cash as well.
Okay, well, instead of filling up a baby pool, and I don't believe you have any children, William, but instead of filling up a baby pool that you don't yet need, you could just check out Pico's energy-saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work and cut your bills.
So no more ice?
It's the summer. Flyers aren't playing. They've already melted all the ice in the rink.
Yeah, that seems like what's up. I'm going to have to check this out. It seems like the way to go, Charlie. Thank you.
So just head to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it. All
right, welcome back. I like that I'm wearing the same shirt there. That's funny. I want to talk about some defensemen, Charlie, because
it was a weaker camp class for defensemen, I would say.
And especially with, their only first-round defenseman of, the past how many years with Oliver Bonk not participating in the on-ice stuff.
Yes.
It's like, all right, well, the high-end prospects, or at least prospect, not out there.
And then Carter
Amico, who they took in the second round, also not out there.
Right.
But there is another second-round pick. Spencer Gill was on the ice for this team. This is someone you've been pretty high on.
Yeah.
Since
I like Spencer Gill.
he was drafted. How did Spencer Gill look over last week at the training center?
I thought he had a good camp. I thought he was really, there were only a couple defensemen that are, in my mind, real intriguing prospects that were at this camp. There was obviously Spencer Gill, second round pick last year, Hunter McDonald, who we know the organization loves. Then you have Ty Murchison, who got a contract. You have Luke Vluzwick, who they drafted late in this draft. But then a lot of camp invites. So I would say it was Gill and McDonald. I thought Gill outplayed McDonald. And I'm not as anti-McDonald as I was maybe a year and a half ago. I see the physical tools. I see the plausible upside as a third pair defenseman. I didn't think McDonald had an amazing camp. I didn't think he was as physical as he was in the previous camp. I thought other guys like Van Sage, like Noah Powell, showed that physicality more than he did, which is a little bit of a surprise. But I thought Gill was the best defensively, which was interesting because that's McDonald's thing. McDonald is supposed to be the defensive guy, the shutdown dude. I thought Gill, using his skating, using his reach, using his instincts, I thought he was a very good shutdown defenseman at this camp. He made a lot of really good plays. He played really well in rush coverage. There were a couple mistakes. He let Bump get around him a few times, but he did really good against Martone. He did well against guys like Murtagh, who are really fast, and he was really good in coverage in the zone. So we're talking about coverage of the cycle. He was swallowing guys up. Guys were trying to get around him. They were trying to, test him laterally. Gill can move. He is, I wouldn't say he's an elite skater by any means, but I think he's certainly a league average in terms of NHL, a league average skater. And given his size, league average is good enough for a guy who's as big as Spencer Gill is. I liked what I saw from Spencer Gill. I don't think he was dominant. He wasn't one of my standouts, but I think he had a good camp. It's
good to hear that they do, because yes, they tried to add size this past draft, but even with that, quite a bit of draft capital has been used on forwards the last few years. Outside of Oliver Bonk, there really haven't been a ton of defensemen taken in the top couple of rounds outside of Gill
and Amico, yeah.
Yeah, and now at 6'4" and a righty, it's if there is a path, that's really solid. I have no idea what this guy's ceiling is, but the fact that it looks capable of moving the puck, but most importantly, a physical presence for this team. That's really good to hear, just because I am not sold on what they have on defense. Okay. And I like Hunter McDonald. I like him, but again, what is he? What is he other than a physical third pair defenseman? Now, you need those. I'm a big fan of those types of players. But is that it? Because if that's the whole element that we have, at least for now, I don't see that as enough. But if this is a potential Rasmus Ristolainen replacement, whatever.
Yeah, Amico, I think, is the Risto replacement.
Yeah, he's the guy who brings that element.
Yeah, he's going to be the Risto heir apparent, I believe, with McDonald playing a role as well. Gill he's physical, but he's not mean, I think is probably the best way to put it. I think he could play more physical given how big he is, but it's not like he's soft.
Yes.
Like, he will battle. He will throw a hit here and there, but I don't think he is he's not a Miko who's looking to hurt people.
It's more leverage and positioning than a big hit.
Exactly. And that's what I saw at this camp. That's more of his MO, but he can hit. It's not like as I said, it's not like he is soft. You're not going to have him I don't think he plays and I say this as someone who really likes Travis Sanheim, but I don't think he plays like Travis Sanheim, where Sanheim is he's got a small guy's mind and a big guy's body. Gill knows he's big and uses his size. He's just not necessarily going to blow people up.
Yes, Travis Sanheim is tall, but he does not play big.
No.
He uses his reach well.
I think he's gotten better at playing big, but he's never going to be physical.
He uses his reach well, but he's not a physical player. there is a little bit of that to Spencer Gill, and that's great to hear. I think you need like we've talked, variety.
Yeah.
Variety of players to make it hard to attack you, just like it's on forward, like hard to defend. If it's, oh, well, Sanheim's out there, so we have to maybe be a little more physical. And then when Hunter McDonald gets out there, it's, oh, well, if you try to get to the middle of the ice, he might cross-check you because he's not all that well acquainted with the rules. Like, who knows? And I think just having this variety here, but Spencer Gill, just because you were high on him last year and he was one of your, good camp, not super impressive, but held his own. That's what I need from him right now is a developmental piece.
Yeah.
He's a while away, I would guess.
I think he is definitely going to, after he turns pro, at least spend a year in the AHL, if not more. It is interesting, though, you're talking about the defenseman, because coming out of this draft, defense is probably now the weak point of the prospect pool. Like, you could say that they need a 1C, and yes, they could use a guy in the prospect pool who has clear-cut, Caleb Desnoyers, Anton Frondel, Michael Misa, James Higgins. They could use the guy with that kind of upside, absolutely. But they are deep now down the middle. They have a lot of center prospects.
They've got a lot of darts.
Like going through it. They have Luchenko. They have Nesbitt. They have Cole Knuble. They have Matthew Gard. They have Jack Berglund. They have a lot of guys who project to stick down the middle. So from a depth standpoint at center, they're in pretty good shape. And they got a ton of wings. They're loaded at the wing. They have a guy with superstar potential on the wing now in Martone. And then a bunch of other guys. They got Bump. They got Murtag. They got Vansagi. They got Barkey. They got a lot of wings. Defense, it's Bonk, who legitimately has top 4 upside. Gill, who maybe has top 4 upside, but is probably riskier. He's much less certain than Bonk. And then after that, you've got Amico, who I like, but he is coming off of a big injury. He's a risk. And then after Amico, it's Hunter McDonald.
And Emil Andre.
Well, Emil Andre isn't even a prospect anymore.
Yeah, he's not really a
He's a young guy. He's a young guy, yes. And maybe if you want to count him as a still developing guy, but he's no longer Calder eligible.
Yeah, once the Calder eligibility's up, you can't call him a prospect anymore. He bounced back and forth, but he played quite a bit of time in the NHL.
That's true, and he's no lock to make the team out of camp.
Yeah.
So if you want to still consider him a prospect, fair. But my point is that he's suddenly defense, especially left side defense, because Bonk, Amico, and Gill are all righty shots. With Andre graduated, like Hunter McDonald's your top left-handed shooting defense prospect. That they could use some help there.
He was what, a 6th round pick with 3rd pair upside, and that's the top.
Who I believe was passed over twice as a draft eligible.
And I'm going to talk a little about McDonald just because I find it a little surprising that, listen, they did go out of their way to add size and physicality. They can say that wasn't their top priority, but I don't know. I just watched your draft, and it's the cast of Monstars. It's the Monstars roster,
Yep.
So it was clearly, so maybe he just didn't stand out physically simply because they had a bunch of guys who now play a more physical, straightforward game. Do you think maybe Hunter McDonald backed it off because, listen, I'm in the AHL now. I don't need to get their attention the way everyone else does.
That is possible.
Or it was just he was out there with, listen, they've improved the prospect pool and guys look better now.
It's tough to say. I would say that
I can't make you get in his head.
Yeah, at last year's camp, though, there were a lot more times when I was watching other players, and then Hunter McDonald would happen to another player, and I'd be like, "Oh, there's Hunter McDonald," and that happened less often this year. So I do think that it wasn't just me not focused on him. I think he wasn't quite as noticeable this time. I don't think he was bad. He's still a better skater than I think he gets credit for. He made some decent plays with the puck, but he just didn't pop as much this year as he did last year. Maybe because last year he had more to prove. He was turning pro. He gotten in some AHL games, and it was like, hey, I can make the team. Now, he can make the team this year too, but he's not coming in with, I want to show that I deserve all this hype.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So just in general on defense, Bonk is probably the answer to this question. He wasn't on the ice. So maybe there just is no one. Who did you think looked the most polished and could be in the NHL soon-ish? Did either of these guys maybe maybe a call up is in his.
So we're talking
future,
defenseman
on the D side because
it's probably McDonald, probably because you could put him in there and he could hold his own in a third pair role playing 10, 11, 12 minutes a night. I have zero doubt in my mind that he won't get killed. Now, how good he'll be, I don't know, but he can certainly hold up physically. He's still huge.
Okay.
He was fine, but he wasn't amazing. And I do wonder if, and obviously Amico didn't skate at this camp, and Amico's a righty, McDonald's a lefty, but Amico is McDonald except with a better pedigree. So I do wonder if over the long term, maybe this hurts. McDonald before they drafted Amico was the only guy they had on defense who was the big, tough, mean, physical guy who could skate a bit. Now they have another guy who they use a second-round pick who's a big, mean, physical. He's 230, 6'5", 6'6". He's huge. He's even bigger than McDonald. You do wonder if maybe McDonald suddenly is no longer as necessary in their thinking as he was this time last year because now they have bigger, younger Hunter McDonald.
Well, that's we heard so much about how much they liked Hunter McDonald, and every conversation we had with anyone in the organization, whether it was on the show or for your articles, his name would come up. Now they've seen him a year in the AHL, and they have other guys. Maybe they were part of what impressed them so much. And again, who knows? We can't get in their heads. Was just that we have nobody else who does this.
Yes.
And now suddenly we used a second-round pick on one of these guys, and he's legitimately good. Okay.
Yeah.
We still like Hunter, but you got to start showing us more improvement if you want to be part of a future possible core.
We're going to find out if, and you spoke to this beautifully, but we're going to find out if they actually liked Hunter McDonald or they liked the concept of Hunter McDonald.
Yes, they had no one else. That we know we need this thing.
Yeah.
He is the only semblance of this thing we have, so we love him. Well, now there's some other guys.
And perhaps they do still really like Hunter McDonald. Maybe when we do interviews with Keith Jones and Brent Flair and Danny Briere, they're still going to be bringing up Hunter McDonald unprompted like they were all last season. But we'll see.
Keith Jones basically, every time we've talked to him and brought up Hunter McDonald, he's concealing the Hunter McDonald jersey he's wearing underneath his clothes. Maybe it's that, or maybe, shiny new toy. I'm susceptible to that all the time. Before we hit the commercial, let's do someone you haven't been so high on. Jack Berglund, last year's second-round pick. Funny story of with him wearing two different size skates that he didn't realize he needed. Two sizes
too big. I think.
His one skate was just way too big, and there's no reason. There's no wonder this guy can't skate. Have you ever tried that? It's nearly impossible.
It's hard.
Now that he's got his feet measured correctly, have you changed your opinion a bit?
I would say that I don't notice the skating being significantly better. I will say that he did pop at times, mostly because he is a bear to get the puck off of. When he is carrying the puck, guys are trying to knock it off of him. They're trying to, basically, he's using his arm and his shoulder to just basically check them away from him. He is strong and he has a big frame and he uses it when he's protecting the puck, and that's intriguing. In the 3-on-3 as well, his hockey sense popped. He sees the ice well. You could see him being a center where, he doesn't do a lot of the stuff, but he makes life easier for his wingers because he opens up space for them with his size, with the way he sees the ice. I wouldn't say Berglund was incredible in this camp, and maybe part of the reason why I've never been super excited about Jack Berglund.
Yeah.
I'll say that straight up.
That was a pick you did not like.
I'll say that straight up. But there's an element where Berglund was better at this camp than he was last year. But then you have Jack Nesbitt, who is what if Jack Berglund, but with high-end puck skills? And it's that's the guy I'm going to watch. If I'm going to watch the center who isn't a good skater, but they really I'm going to be more intrigued by the guy who's scoring all the goals rather than the guy who, even now is still probably maxing out as a decent enough 3C.
All right.
But he was fine.
There's a few more guys I want to touch on, but first let's take our second commercial break. Gotta lead it off with Ace Hardware. because at Ace Hardware, they got that. If you have an outlet you said you'd fix last summer, one more tutorial isn't going to do it for you. You don't know what you're doing. It's time to call the experts, and it's time to go to Ace Hardware, because Ace Hardware isn't just the helpful hardware folks anymore. Not only do they have all the parts and tools you need to get the job done, but Ace Hardware Home Services now has the people to help you actually do the repairs as well. From plumbing and electrical to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, they're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love from the store, now to your front door. From Philly to the Jersey Shore. They helped me out with my air conditioning a few years ago now, and it's been running great ever since. Highly recommend our friends at Ace Hardware Home Services. Check them out. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project. While we're here, it's time to talk about Cherry Hill Jeep. That's right, because if you're looking for a Jeep or Ram truck, there's only one dealership in South Jersey who has been the market leader since 1967, and that's my friends at Cherry Hill Jeep. They've got you covered on the best selection, but more importantly, the best prices. You can slide into a Jeep Grand Cherokee this month. Not only is it the most awarded SUV ever, it was also named MotorWeek's best midsize utility vehicle for the past 2 years in a row. That's in addition to being a 2024 IIHS top safety pick. Or you can pull away in the most luxurious and functional pickup truck on the market today. It's the 2025 Ram 1500, which just received the most coveted award in the pickup truck industry, 2025 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Just the truck of the year, no big deal. So stop in today and tell them PHLY sent you, and you'll receive an additional $1,000 for your trade-in. I know people buy Jeeps and Ram trucks elsewhere. I just don't know why. Drive home in your new Jeep or Ram truck today, just minutes from all bridges, or available online 24/7 at cherryhilljeep.com. All right, before we get to the big deal presented by Cherry Hill Jeep, let's just get to a couple more guys I'm interested in. Let's start with Carson Bjarnason, because last year at development camp, and we talked on the way out yesterday, like maybe these things just really aren't that great for goalies. You know, maybe this is more of an everyone else sort of thing. But last year at dev camp, it was not so great. We'll see. And then as, you know, the rest of the off-season activities turned into the preseason and the rookie game and all that, I came away pretty impressed with what I saw out of Carson Bjarnason. Yeah. Obviously still a prospect netminder, but I didn't come away thinking, oh, man, this ain't going to work. I was impressed with a year of decent hockey under his belt. How'd he look this year?
Well, I'll say with the caveat that I don't focus too much on goalies at this camp. I never really have. I'm more focused on the skaters. They're easier to evaluate. Also, I just don't know the intricacies of the goalie position, of technique. So it's not something I focus on nearly as much as skating, shooting, puck handling, hockey sense, vision. Those are things that I know, and I feel confident I can speak intelligently about. The goalie stuff I tend to leave to the goalies. For me, it's more like, did he stop the puck a lot? And did he give up a lot of goals?
3 of the 4 guys there, not prospects.
Right.
Just dudes. Right. Dudes with pads that they brought in because they need goalies.
One's Robert Esch's son. So
yeah,
there was that.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Whalen. I would say that Bjarnason was definitely better at this development camp than last year. Last year, he was noticeably actively poor at development camp. It was concerning how poor he was. He even looked bad in drills. This year, I would say he was fine. In drills, he looked fine. I didn't think he looked worlds better than the other goalies, but he didn't look bad. I thought he struggled in the 3-on-3. He was on a team with Martone, and that team finished last, and he was a significant contributing factor as to why they finished last in the 4-team tournament. Then I thought in the scrimmage, he was pretty good in the 5-on-5 scrimmage. So I would say overall, decent enough camp for Bjarnason, but I say this with the caveat of I don't know goalies that much, and I didn't focus on watching him. Like, the only time I remember really focusing in on a goalie development camp was Carter Hart. And that was because he was their best prospect. And it's like, well, what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to watch the goalie for most of the camp.
It was the reason we were all paying attention to it.
Exactly. But that was the only time I really spent a lot of time focusing on a goalie at development camp. And there really, in my mind, isn't a ton you can learn, in part because more than other positions, they're really focused on what the development coaches are telling them to do. Like, hey, try this new thing.
Yeah.
Maybe, change this positioning. Maybe, stand a little bit deeper in your net, stand a little bit further out, challenge shooters more. So they're more likely to make mistakes at a camp that are more driven not by talent, but by really focusing on truly new things to them, which is another reason why I don't put too much stock in it. But I would say he was okay. Better than last year, not holy crap, this guy looks amazing good though.
And I think that was part of the story of Bjarnason last year was like they were trying to redevelop some of his habits.
It seems like.
And it was kind of his head was spinning a little. And then immediately after, it started to go well. Like every time we saw him out, it was, he's taken to whatever this advice was.
Had a really good year in the WHL
and,
for a bad team.
He's
A not great team.
Yeah, he's seems to have improved year over year. So we'll get through that. Last guy, Alex Ciernik, just because I think people are intrigued by his skill set. What'd you think of Ciernik?
I thought he was good. The one thing that impressed me about him is that last year he was a complete and total non-factor in the 5-on-5 scrimmage. When there was less space available, he did nothing. He just could not deal with the fact that guys were on him quicker. When he played 3-on-3, he looked great. When there was more space and he could use his speed at 5-on-5, he did nothing. He was much more noticeable at 5-on-5 this year. Intriguingly enough, he was probably less noticeable at 3-on-3 as opposed to last year this time around, but he was much better at 5-on-5. He was carrying the puck through the neutral zone. He was making some plays. Wasn't dominant, but maybe he's getting better at using his speed even when there's less space available. That's going to be the key thing for his development because he has the pace, he has the skating ability to be an NHL player. He has the skill, I would say, to at least be a third liner. He needs to do better at making plays quicker and dealing with the fact that gaps are tighter at 5-on-5 in the pro game at the NHL level, even in the AHL level. I thought he made progress in that front, but I don't think he was incredible. I think he had an okay camp.
Okay. That's a lot of our development camp conversation. If you want an even more in-depth look, again, become a diehard if you're not one and read Charlie's article because it's like 4,000 words and it's excellent.
Yeah. Do it.
Now it's time for the big deal presented by Cherry Hill Jeep. Check out cherryhilljeep.com. It's available 24/7. Why wouldn't you? All right. Now, I wanted to get into this conversation about Shabanov and Pelletier, something we haven't really touched on. It was just like, hey, they didn't get Shabanov, so we don't have to do an emergency show
podcast
over 4th of July weekend. Hooray for Bill. Charlie might have to do this alone. He's down the shore. But there's some, we did a mailbag on Thursday's show, Kelly and I.
Okay.
And there's a couple of questions from that that carry over to this conversation that I want to address. The first one is from Christian Inabenet. Not gonna work here. Christian Inabenet. Do you feel that something went wrong in the Shabanov saga for the Flyers? Briere's cheerier nature this week makes it seem like Shabanov's decision was made pretty late in the process. That's like, does it feel as if they had him and lost him, or maybe some of the reports were just a little overly optimistic? Like, which do you personally subscribe to?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is I think the Flyers were confident they were going to get him. The Flyers internally felt like it was, if not a done deal, they were feeling good. I really think, and I don't have certainty on this, but my read on the situation, the 3 weeks leading up to his decision, was these reports were coming from friends or maybe even family members of Shabanov who he was telling, I think I'm going to Philly. And that's where the Russian language reports are coming from. That's the vibe I got from people around the league I talked to, was that that's probably where it's coming from, that he hasn't made a decision yet, but he's telling people in his inner circle that it's going to be Philly. It's going to be Philly. I don't know if the Flyers were ever promised that he was coming to Philly, but I could see a world where the Flyers, in tandem with all those reports and everything they were hearing from Shabanov's camp about, like, yeah, we really like what you're selling. You know, we're asking you about, like, you know, living arrangements and things like that. They were feeling like, okay, well, we got all these reports, and there's usually, where there's smoke, there's usually fire, and we're liking everything we're hearing from his camp. We think we're going to get him. Maybe it was more that than them being like, yeah, like just don't worry. Wait 3 days. We're going to sign with you. Oh, we changed our mind. Sorry. Maybe it was more the former than the latter, but I don't know for sure.
And now the other side of this, which I don't know how big of a loss it is, but we are talking about a team that has a ton of wingers, but they did lose a little depth. And we thought part of the conversation was how many of these undersized guys can you really have on the wing? If they are going to sign Shabanov, we know that it's not like Michkov and TK are the biggest dudes in the world. Denver Barkey coming at some point. Pelletier expendable. Now, you just let him walk for nothing. And he was part of a return for two guys who were contributors for this team. I'm happy that they're gone, but they were roster players. They were legit NHLers. And you look at the deal he signed. We have this question from Dr. Brizgalov. After seeing the budget deal Pelletier signed in Tampa and with number 71 injury concerns, what the hell happened? I get they're saving the room for Shabanov, but obviously that didn't happen. But now, like, should they have found a way to make that work? I thought he proved his worth down the stretch. I thought, yeah, he was decent. I would like to see a little more. I don't know how big of a loss it is, but do you see these two things as related? And do you see them as, well, one's a mistake now that you didn't get the other?
I don't think they are as connected as people may have thought they were.
All right.
I think that what I had heard after the Pelletier news broke, what I had heard was not that it had anything to do with Shabanov. I didn't even ask, but like that wasn't brought up. Shabanov wasn't even brought up as a factor. What I had heard was that they were worried about the possibility of arbitration. They knew what he was asking for, and it was significantly more than what they valued him at. And they worried that given his NHL time, what he had done, especially what he had done in Calgary, that he might actually win an arbitration case against us. And we might end up having to pay him more than we want to. Look at their cap situation right now, okay? They're only, assuming they want to keep Ellis off long-term injury reserve, they only have about 1.44 mil worth of cap space. If there was a risk of Pelletier getting 1.6 mil in arbitration or something like that, they might have just felt like that would have made things too tight given what they thought they were probably going to get York on. I think it might have been more of that. I just don't. Is it possible that it played into it because they were pretty confident they were going to get Shabanov? Sure. But I don't think they value Pelletier enough that it really is too much that they're going to regret. Let me put it that way. I think they would have been perfectly fine having Pelletier on a $900,000 contract, but I think their read was that he was not going to accept that from them. Now, he ultimately did accept a low cap hit from the Lightning. That said, they also gave him a 3-year term.
They gave him 3 years.
And they're the Lightning. Like, they have a lot of space available because they're so top-heavy from a cap standpoint for a guy like Pelletier to play. And also, they're good. They can be like, hey, come play for us. You can maybe be a fourth liner and win a cup.
Yeah, they are constantly looking for those guys who can fill those roles cheap in the lineup because they have a bunch of star players.
Yeah.
They're paying them a ton of money.
Yeah.
How can we try to beat the system a little lower in our lineup? It's take a chance on Pelletier. Maybe he's something.
I'm just saying there's a world where like Pelletier's camp could have been to the Flyers like, yeah, we're only going to sign with you guys for 1.6.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, yeah, with the Lightning, we'll sign for 800.
Sure. No, that's completely understandable. Makes a ton of sense, especially with a 3-year term where this is guaranteed money here. Yeah. Even if it is a two-way deal, it's still guaranteed money. All right. This is going to be a yes or no question, and then we will get to Super Chats. Do you think Danny could be interested in adding Evgeny Kuznetsov, yes or no?
I'll say no. I would be surprised. It doesn't seem to fit with what they are trying to do. Also, given some of his rumored activities, I don't know if he's someone they necessarily want around a young team.
It would shock me.
It would be surprising.
It would be a little surprising. All right. Let's hit those Super Chats. I think we have like 8 or 9.
Yeah,
so let's get through these. A bunch from Gary B.
Let's see if we can get to 250 likes while we're doing Super Chats.
Oh, yeah. That
we're
should
at
be a
215
problem.
right now. 35 more, gang.
That should not be a problem.
Let's do it.
From Gary B., his first one here. Cole Knuble makes the team. That's my bold prediction out of camp.
Okay, well,
let's effing go Flyers.
Gary, I regret to inform you.
Spicy.
Not only is that very spicy, it's also impossible because he's going back to college, so he's not going to be at training camp. However, I will say that when Brent Flair was asked by, I think it was Rachel from Locked On Flyers, asked, what does Cole Knuble need to do to earn a contract? And Brent Flair's answer was, play one more season, Like, he's getting a contract. It's just Knuble wanted to go back to college for one more year. And when he's done, we're giving him a freaking contract.
We will be signing Cole Knuble when his time in college, he decides it's over.
Yes, that is not a question. He is getting a contract. Don't worry.
That's good.
But, Gary, I'm sorry. You're not going to win that bold prediction bet because he's not going to be at camp. Sorry.
What if he just signs out of nowhere?
That'd
He's
be
like,
funny.
you know what? I'm not going.
I killed it at this camp. I can play in the NHL. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm not going back to college. Notre Dame. I don't want to go to church.
Understandable. From JH, Flyers in their cyber bullies era. I think that's just funny. Calling them the cyber bullies. Listen, they've gotten bigger and tougher, at least in the prospect pool. That's indisputable. All right. Another one here from Gary. Flyers need more bullies who aren't afraid to lay people out. It sounds like they drafted a bunch.
Sure did.
When all of a sudden Hunter McDonald's physicality is like not standing out in a group of mostly small, like young guys. I don't want to call them smaller because they just drafted a bunch of big guys, but it's all young dudes. This is development camp. And he has a year pro now, Hunter McDonald. I would say they've done a good job in checking a lot of those boxes if it's pushing him down in terms of, yeah, man, the dude who killed everyone last year, didn't really see it this year.
Yeah, wasn't as impressive.
Yeah. From Chase, who do you think the bigger steal of the draft will be, Mertag or Amico?
That's a hard question because I haven't yet seen Amico up close. I feel like I'd be more able to answer this question fairly if Amico skated at development camp. I will say Mertag looked very good at camp. I was impressed. The physical tools pop. He screams quality middle six forward to me. And to get a guy like that in the second round, that would be a great pick. Amico, I like him too. He could be if he turns out to be Braden Coburn, then he's probably the steal because to get that guy in the early second round will be a steal. I just haven't seen him yet.
Just based on draft value, if Amico doesn't have the injury, he goes higher, right?
Yeah. But Mertag, from a lot of people's perspective, was a potential first-round pick, too.
I do remember reading
they
that,
were
yes.
both value picks. Mertag probably was the bigger value pick because Amico did have the injury. Like, you can say, well, if he didn't have the injury, but he did.
Yeah,
so that happened.
And maybe it's totally fine and no harm, no foul. Great.
Yeah.
But when one of your things is mobility and you broke your kneecap, that's probably concerning.
2 kneecap surgeries.
Yeah, it's been repaired twice.
Yeah.
That's probably a little bit of a concern.
It adds risk.
Yes, there's more risk. But it's a good question. Just tough. One guy didn't play. From JH again. I love how Charlie can barely keep it together during the Pico ad. Show the bloopers. Here's some money for food while you're in the article mines.
I think we got that done.
One take.
Yeah.
One take.
Yeah,
no bloopers. We did it live a couple of times too, and that it seemed to go pretty well.
Yeah, during the draft.
Yeah, Steve and I did it at the draft party, and you jumped in, and you didn't even have the copy at the Saturday coverage.
I did my best,
and it went fine.
Yeah.
From Gary B again, Charlie, don't lie, Berglund still sucks in my view.
He's not one of my favorite prospects in the organization, but he's still in my top 20.
He's in the top 20, which listen, he better be. He was a second-round pick a year ago.
Yeah.
But you were never high on the pick. He seems to have improved, but you're like still
Yeah, there are other center prospects in the organization I like more than Jack.
And
Berglund.
listen, your Nesbitt take makes a ton of sense. Like, yeah, he's this guy, but with way more upside.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like, who am I gonna like more?
Yeah.
The one who handles the puck better. It makes a ton of sense to me. All right, from Bean. What up, Bean? Thoughts on Isaac Howard?
People are really into this Isaac Howard thing, aren't they? I think what it was that Anthony Sanfilippo made a big deal out of it like about 4 or 5 months ago.
I was gonna say I haven't heard anything new.
I think what it was that like he chattered about it on one of their shows after the Carson Dorward signing. He was like, "Oh, maybe this is a way to convince Isaac Howard to come. He's a teammate." And then they drafted Shane Van Sage. Look, if you can get Isaac Howard for a reasonable price, I'm open to it. That said, he's another smallish forward who isn't a sure thing. So, like, sure, if you can get him for a reasonable price, but like I'm not giving up a first-round pick for him.
You're not giving up the Toronto 2027?
Probably not.
Okay. All right. I have no idea. That's why I ask. All right, and we're headed to overtime. Right. Follow the conversation further at allphly.com. I was like, what is happening? Do we have another commercial? I was very confused. It's only year 2. From Brandon X. Heard the Athletics say trading for Kosa from Detroit
Sebastian Casa,
makes sense for Philly since Wings got Gibson and Augustin coming. What would you guys be interested in?
I have not heard maybe this was something that they probably talked about on a podcast that I don't
Perhaps.
listen to. I haven't read anything linking the Flyers to Sebastian Casa. He's interesting. He was a mid-first round pick for Detroit a few years ago. He's big. He's like 6'6", and he was pretty good in the minors last year for Grand Rapids. Look, Flyers could use more goalie prospects with high-end upside, and we are talking about a first-round pick goalie. If the price is right, sure. That said, remember that the Flyers are pretty stocked at the AHL level. Carson Bjarnason turns pro, so he's going to need time, and they're going to have Fedotov down there as well. Is there room for another AHL goalie? I don't know. Maybe if you were like, well, we're trading for him and putting him in our NHL lineup, but they just signed Dan Vladar. So maybe not the cleanest fit, but in all honesty, talented goalies, they haven't solved the goalie position. Take shots at guys. So
Now,
not opposed to it, depending on what the cost would be.
Just for me, when Fedotov came over, part of the explanation for the big cap hit, when they bring him over, but that's the end, and now he has to sign a new contract. Part of the explanation was, well, that's about how much he was going to make in Russia. So he's not coming over and taking a pay cut. If he could get the same amount in Russia, are we positive he's staying if it's going to be in the AHL?
I asked him straight up if he would be willing to report at the end of the season at exit interviews, and he dodged the question. Is it possible that if he doesn't make the team out of camp, which seems highly likely, that he has a conversation with the Flyers and is like, can we do a mutual termination if I can get a good deal in the K? Sure, it's possible. I haven't heard anything saying that's a guarantee, but you can't rule it out. I don't know how many bridges he burned, though, coming over. That's the question.
It was an odd situation. Yeah. He just shows up here one day, like the whole thing with his detention prior to that. So who knows what it actually took to get over here. It's just a question I have if he's actually going to play in the A, because
it's a reasonable question.
Russians
I don't know the answer.
Tend to not like to.
I don't know the answer.
We just saw it with a much younger guy.
Yeah.
All right, this next one here from David Shub. Anyone else more excited about the prospects than most of the current roster? Signings seem cheap / short term, like most teams wouldn't want them anyway.
Well, I mean, I think it's reasonable to be more excited about the prospects.
Sure.
Like Porter Martone is more exciting than anyone they got.
Not named Matthew Michkov.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like on the roster.
But like, don't dismiss Dvorak and Vladar. Like, there were a lot of teams that wanted Christian Dvorak. There were a lot of teams that wanted a decent enough 3C, which is probably what he is. And a lot of teams were looking for goalies. So I wouldn't just brush them aside as like, well, nobody wanted them. Nah, there were teams in on those guys.
It's not so much those players themselves that excites me about the current team. And yeah, like the prospects are exciting. They're fun. We don't know what they are. Could be a boat, you know? The thing that excites me is we're going to get to see the players on this roster that we are actually excited about with complementary pieces. Like Christian Dvorak will make whoever he's centering or whatever he's line on is better, and then we can judge those players
I agree with that.
With more upside. If the goaltending isn't the worst goaltending we've ever seen, it's going to be much easier to judge every other aspect. Like, can a guy kill a penalty, or like, is he actually good at it and was killed by goaltending, or we need to rethink his spot in this rotation because the goaltending's better and we're still bad, you know, like. That sort of thing is what excites me about what they did.
I think it will be much more difficult to judge the quality of a Bobby Brink if he is being centered by Rodrigo Abels versus being centered by Christian Dvorak, who is at least an NHL caliber player.
Exactly. All right. Let's see. Another one here from David. Is it a good deal if the players are mediocre?
It can be. You can get a mediocre player on a good deal.
Yeah.
The Dvorak deal, look, and I wonder if this is what, because this is 2 straight super chats from David Schubb. I wonder if the Dvorak deal is what he's zeroed in on. So I'm just going to assume that it is, because why not? He just did super chats. I'm not talking to him. Dvorak was an overpay on a 1-year deal.
Yes.
But it's a 1-year deal.
1-year deal.
It's a 1-year deal. Like, you don't really have to worry too much about the implications of a 1-year deal going bad, because the worst case scenario is he stinks and then you either trade him for peanuts at the deadline or you just wave goodbye to him at the end of the year. He fills a hole. Did they overpay on a 1-year deal to fill that hole? Maybe, but you wanted to fill that hole and you did.
Just kidding.
He fills a need for you.
From Marco Belcher 5-hole. Thank you for all the coverage. Why no qualifying offer for Wisdom? May have been best player in playoffs. Seems weird. He was very good since Christmas.
I was mildly surprised he didn't qualify as Wisdom because he did finish the year strong. He finally got it together in the AHL.
He seemed to finally have that bounce back. With Desnoyers, it was kind of like a building towards. Yeah, man, we wish this could have worked. It just didn't. Wisdom, it felt like, had the year where it's okay. Let's see, but. Listen, they're going to be bringing in a lot of guys over the next few years.
I think that's probably
sometimes you just move on. And listen, Danny's going to want his guys.
Yeah, it's a little bit different because obviously Flair still runs the draft.
True.
He did draft Wisdom, but Flair now pretty much exclusively runs the draft.
Yeah.
Danny and Riley Armstrong and that whole crew, they deal with the development. Flair isn't as much on the development side anymore. He still has his hands in it because he knows these prospects really well. But maybe you're right. Maybe Danny was like, hey, I'm going to have a lot of my guys coming in over the next few years. Maybe Zade's a decent enough fourth liner, but is he really a guy we need to prioritize when I have my own decent enough fourth liners that I drafted?
I just drafted like 6 of them.
Yeah.
All right. And with that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, make sure you're following us right here on YouTube. Set that reminder bell so you never miss a live show. And hit that like button. We did get over 250.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you
job,
for that.
gang.
Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. Follow the podcast as well, because we're putting all sorts of great stuff up on there. That's it. I am Bill Matz. That is Charlie O'Connor. Till tomorrow, be excellent to each other.
We all silly like the mayor.